Welcome back to the Antiscam Report. I'm Paul, and joining me as always is my co-host Dan. On today's show, we'll be discussing the ways social media, specifically Facebook, is used as a platform for scams. But first, the news. Today we have 3 news articles that highlight the ongoing efforts of Antiscam and our allies to stop scammers and protect vulnerable communities. Let's dive in.
That's right, Paul, and a big shout out to our listeners. Our first article comes from April 19th, 2023, and it's about the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, testifying before the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. They discussed their work in cracking down on fraud and related threats against veterans and the broader military community. This is a crucial mission for Antiscam, as scammers often target our brave service members and their families.
Absolutely, Dan. The Deputy Director of the Bureau of Consumer Protections, Monica Vaca, stressed the importance of combating scams and unlawful tactics aimed at the military community. In 2022 alone, the FTC received over 195,000 complaints from the military community, with over 414 million in reported monetary harm from fraud. Those numbers are alarming, and Antiscam is dedicated to stopping scammers from preying on our veterans and military retirees.
That's right, Paul. The FTC has been taking enforcement actions to combat illegal practices that harm consumers with a military background, such as deceptive earnings claims, educational recruitment tactics, illegal automobile-related and financing practices, and bogus charities. It's heartening to see the FTC's commitment to protecting those who have served our country.
I couldn't agree more. Now, let's move on to our second article, also from the FTC, dated May 3rd, 2023. The FTC has proposed changes to its 2020 privacy order with Facebook, alleging that the company has violated the order and misled parents about controlling their children's communications through its Messenger Kids app. This is an important step in holding tech companies accountable and safeguarding the privacy of children and teens.
And they need to be held accountable. The proposed changes would prevent Meta, formerly known as Facebook, from profiting from data collected from users under the age of 18. It would also impose additional limitations on facial recognition technology and require enhanced protections for users. Antiscam's mission extends beyond direct scams to include protecting consumers' privacy, especially vulnerable populations like children and teens.
Exactly so, Dan. Facebook has faced previous actions from the FTC for privacy violations, and it's crucial that companies like Meta are held accountable for their actions. We commend the FTC for taking these steps to protect children's privacy and ensure that the tech companies prioritize user security. More about that shortly.
For sure, Paul, we'll get into that later. For now, let's move on to our final article, which hits closer to home. The Clay County Sheriff's Office recently warned residents about an IT scam that targeted a woman, resulting in a loss of $200,000. Scammers impersonated a cybersecurity company, gained access to the victim's computer, and tricked her into making deposits at Bitcoin kiosks.
That's right, Dan. This unfortunate incident highlights the importance of staying vigilant and not providing financial information over the phone. Scammers often use tactics like posing as trusted organizations or somehow creating a sense of urgency to exploit their victims. Antiscam encourages everyone to verify any suspicious calls or requests and never give out personal information or financial information to unknown callers.
Absolutely, Paul. It's quite disheartening to hear about individuals falling victim to these scams. But it also strengthens our resolve to educate and protect the public. By raising awareness and sharing stories like this, we can empower people to recognize and avoid scams. We can also let them know that something is being done, even though we need to do more.
Excellent points. So that wraps up our news roundup for today, but remember, Antiscam is here to stop scammers in their tracks and protect vulnerable communities. So as always, Links to these articles and further information about scams can be found down below and on our website.
But don't go following those links just yet. We've got a lot more coming up.
That's right, folks. Today we're going to be talking about Facebook and its responsibility in protecting users from scammers. Facebook has been in the news a lot lately, and not for the right reasons. Facebook has become a playground for scammers and fraudsters.
That's right, Paul. Facebook is one of the big social media platforms with over 2.7 billion active users worldwide. But with such a massive user base comes a huge responsibility to ensure that these users are safe from scammers and fraudsters. According to a recent report by NBC News, Facebook groups have become breeding grounds for conspiracies and fake news. Scammers are using these groups to target vulnerable individuals, particularly senior citizens, who may not be as tech savvy as younger users. They just didn't grow up with the technology we now have. And according to a report in March by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, Americans lost $10.3 billion to a wide variety of internet scams just last year.
With so much at stake, Facebook has an ethical responsibility to protect its users from these scams and to make it safe for everyone, not just their profits. In 2018, for example, Facebook announced that it was stepping up its efforts to combat fraud and scams on its platform. But have they really been doing enough in these past 5 years?
Well, according to Facebook, they have implemented various measures to combat fraud and scams, including automated systems that detect and remove fake accounts, phishing scams, and fake news. They also have a team dedicated to investigating and removing malicious actors from their platform. But we need to verify what they're saying, and there's always more that can be done.
Absolutely. While these measures may sound good on paper, the reality is scammers are still able to operate on Facebook. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. For starters, Facebook can improve its reporting system. Right now, the reporting process is cumbersome, and it can take a long time for Facebook to take action. Also, Facebook could do more to educate its users about the tactics that scammers use. Many of these scams, such as phishing and fake job ads, rely on users providing personal information. If users were better informed about these tactics, they would be less likely to fall for them.
For sure, knowledge is key to protecting ourselves and our loved ones. It's not just about protecting users from scams, it's also about preventing scammers from using their platform to steal money from unsuspecting victims. Facebook could definitely do more to regulate the groups on its platform. As we've seen in recent years, Facebook groups have become a breeding ground for conspiracy theories and misinformation. Scammers use these groups to spread their scams to vulnerable people.
So what about the solemn responsibility Facebook has to protect us, the users? They're making billions of dollars each year from our personal data. The least they could do is protect us from scammers. Facebook needs to take more responsibility for the content that is being shared on its platform. It's not enough to simply remove fake accounts, and it doesn't even always do that. Facebook needs to be more proactive in identifying and removing fraudulent content, particularly in groups where scammers tend to operate. In fact, some Facebook features such as Marketplace lack obvious and easily accessible reporting mechanisms, leaving victims at a loss of what to do. Even worse, some scammers have figured out how to infiltrate group moderation in order to skirt guardrails and protections entirely. Additionally, some Facebook groups have even been used to facilitate human trafficking and other illicit activities.
Wow, that's a scary point, Paul. Facebook groups can be a great way to connect with people who share similar interests when they're used legitimately. But Scammers are taking advantage of the trust people have in these groups to push their scams on unsuspecting members. The company definitely needs to do more, but it's not just Facebook's responsibility. Lawmakers and law enforcement also have a role to play in protecting U.S. citizens from scams. They could force Facebook to do more to protect its users through legislation or regulation, but they also need to go after the scammers.
Another big scam on Facebook is the food stamp scam, where scammers offer free items to low-income families in exchange for their food stamp benefits. Scammers create fake pages or groups offering free items to low-income families like groceries or free phones. But in reality, these are scams to steal government benefits. These scams not only hurt the victims financially, but they also take away from much-needed benefit programs for those who actually need them. I'm left to wonder what novel solutions exist to actually solve this problem, right? What are we going to do? For example, we could create a law enforcement task force specifically dedicated to investigating and prosecuting scammers who use social media platforms like Facebook to steal money from people. But so far, nothing like that exists as far as I know.
Those scams are terrible. A task force would be a big help. We could also create legislation that specifically targets scams that use food stamps as a way to steal benefits from poor people. It really is stealing from the government, which means it's really stealing from all of us. These scams are becoming more and more common. Scammers love to steal from those who can afford it the least, simply because those victims are vulnerable.
Absolutely, Dan. And it's not just about the financial loss, it's also about the harm that these scams can cause to vulnerable individuals and families. The bottom line is, we need to do more to protect U.S. citizens from scams, and Facebook surely has a role to play in that. We need to be hypercritical of Facebook, and our elected officials too, to demand that social media platforms take more action to prevent scams and protect their users. We'll be keeping a close eye on this and reporting back on any new developments. Also, stay tuned for our in-depth Facebook report in the near future.
That's right, Paul. And if you have any stories or experiences with scams on Facebook, we want to hear from you. You can reach out to us on Twitter or on Facebook. It is still a very useful platform that's not being exploited by scammers. Or send us an email at antiscam.pack@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Please reach out to us. We are always recruiting new members of the Anti-Scam Army. Together, we will win the war against scams. All right, folks, we're going to be right back with a word from today's sponsor.
Hey, folks. Our sponsor for this segment is Atlas VPN, the ultimate solution for your online security and privacy needs.
When it comes to using public Wi-Fi, you can never be too careful. That's where Atlas VPN steps in, providing you with a secure and encrypted connection that shields your data from prying eyes.
With Atlas VPN, your traffic is routed through a secure tunnel, ensuring that your online activities remain private and protected. No more worries about network managers or hackers intercepting your connection.
But that's not all. Atlas VPN goes the extra mile by blocking ads and malware, making your browsing experience safer and more enjoyable. And with Safe Browse, you can escape online tracking, disable third-party trackers, and stay informed about who's trying to follow your digital footprints.
Protecting yourself from phishing scams and online threats is crucial in today's digital landscape. Safe Browse helps you avoid risky websites and blocks malicious programs, safeguarding your devices and personal information.
And here's the best part. As a special offer for our listeners, Atlas VPN is providing an exclusive 85% off. Just visit www.antiscam.click and use our Atlas VPN affiliate link to take advantage of this limited time deal. It's a great way to support the show and protect yourself at the same time.
So why wait? Start your security journey with Atlas VPN today. Change your locations, keep all your devices safe, and enjoy their gaming and streaming optimized servers. Don't compromise on your online privacy any longer.
Find your way more safely online today. Visit www.antiscam.click and click through to atlasvpn.com on the top bar now to experience the internet with a peace of mind. Remember, it's risk-free for 30 days, and if you're not 100% satisfied, you can cancel anytime. Atlas VPN, your trusted companion for online privacy and security.
Welcome back, folks. Let's talk a little more about Facebook's responsibility in protecting users from scammers. As I said earlier, Facebook has implemented some measures to combat fraud and scams on their platform. But what more can they do, Paul?
Well, for starters, they need to provide more resources for users to report scams and get help if they've been victimized by a scammer. It's not easy to get them to act even when you report activity. And there's something else that Facebook can do, Dan. It can start taking a more proactive approach by actively identifying and removing scammers from its platform. For example, they could be using artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies to detect and remove fake accounts and prevent fraudulent activity. But ultimately, it's also the responsibility of the U.S. government to protect citizens from these scams.
That's great info, Paul. Facebook has the resources and the technology to do more to protect its users from scammers, including some of the same algorithms Facebook uses to target advertising. It's also very important for them to be transparent about their efforts to prevent scams and protect their users. It lets the public know that they're not alone in this fight, and, this is where the government fits in, it lets scammers know that they will be caught and they will be prosecuted. But Facebook is a private company. Can't they set their own rules?
That's right, they can. But I can't emphasize this enough, Dan. Facebook has a responsibility to be honest and open with their users about the risks of using their platform and what they're doing to mitigate those risks. If they don't take action against scammers, people will lose trust in the platform. And when people lose trust in a business, the business often loses money.
And let's not forget about what you mentioned before, the ethical responsibility Facebook has in protecting its users.
Absolutely. Facebook has a duty to its users to protect them from harm, and that includes protecting them from scams and fraud.
But unfortunately, Facebook seems more interested in making a profit than in keeping people safe.
This definitely seems to be the case to me. It's up to us to demand more from Facebook and hold them accountable for their actions. Because that's where the problem lies, Dan. Facebook has been negligent in protecting its users, and as a result, millions of people have fallen prey to scams and fraud on its platform.
You hate to hear it, Paul, but it's true. In 2018, Facebook announced that it was taking steps to combat fraud and scams on its platform. It said it was using advanced technology, like we just mentioned, to detect and remove fraudulent accounts. It also said it was partnering with law enforcement agencies to bring scammers to justice.
Yeah, but the reality is quite different. Scammers are still running rampant on Facebook, and the company is doing very little, in my opinion, to stop them.
I agree with that, unfortunately. In fact, scammers are getting more sophisticated, and they are finding new ways to exploit Facebook's features to their advantage. I'd like to bring up phishing scams, Paul. Scammers send out messages that appear to be from a legitimate source, like Facebook itself or a bank, asking for personal information, like passwords or credit card numbers.
Correct you are, Dan. So, one of the most common scams on Facebook right now is the fake job ad scam. In this form of phishing, scammers post fake job ads on Facebook, and when people apply for these jobs, they're asked to provide personal information, such as a social security number or bank account details. They might say it's for a background check or to fill out a W-4 form, but it's not.
All too true, Paul. And once scammers get their hands on this vital information, they can use it for all kinds of nasty purposes, like identity theft or other fraudulent activities. All because some poor soul was looking for a job.
And it's not just job scams. Unfortunately, these are just the tip of the iceberg. There are countless other scams on Facebook that people need to be aware of. For example, we've seen fake charity scams, where scammers pose as a legitimate charity that actually exists, but then ask for donations redirected to a fake site. Scammers are also targeting low-income families who rely on food stamps. As mentioned earlier, they create fake Facebook pages and groups, offering free food or other items to people who are struggling. But in reality, it's just a scam to steal their benefits.
Taking food from people's mouths. And what's worse is that Facebook is not doing enough to stop these scams, Paul. We've also seen lottery scams, where scammers ask people to pay a fee to enter a fake lottery, promising a large payout that never materializes. The company needs to take responsibility for the safety of its users and put more resources into detecting and removing these fraudulent accounts.
Certainly. And there's also romance scams, quickly becoming one of the most prevalent scams on the platform, where scammers create fake profiles to lure people into romantic relationships and then ask for money. Then there's pyramid schemes, fake product listings on Facebook Marketplace. It just goes on and on.
It's truly alarming how many different kinds of scams are out there. More than any one person can fight alone. That's why it's important for Facebook to take responsibility and to do more to protect us all.
Exactly. Facebook needs to step up and take this issue seriously. It has a broad responsibility to protect its users, and it's failing to do so. It's time for the US government, lawmakers, and law enforcement to hold Facebook and other social media companies accountable and force them to do more. They can pass legislation that requires Facebook to take more aggressive action against scammers, like requiring them to verify the identity of users and limit the number of accounts they can create.
We agree, Paul. Facebook needs to implement better safeguards to protect its users from these scams. Like you mentioned earlier, they could improve their reporting and enforcement mechanisms, or provide more education and resources to users. And it's not just about protecting its users, it's about protecting the integrity of its platform as well.
Right. So if Facebook continues to allow scammers to operate freely on its platform, people are going to lose trust in it, and they won't trust legitimate advertisers either. Ultimately, the book of face may be closed for good.
We hope that Facebook takes these concerns seriously and takes steps to address them. In the meantime, we encourage our listeners to be vigilant and cautious when using social media, especially Facebook. But it's not just Facebook. The whole tech industry needs to do better in protecting its users from scams and fraud. We need more regulation and oversight to ensure that tech companies are doing their part to protect everyone.
And we can't forget the role of the news media in all this, Dan. The media has a responsibility to report on these issues and hold Facebook and other social media companies accountable for their actions, or lack thereof.
You're right, Paul. The news media has a crucial role to play in raising awareness about these scams and in pushing for change.
Absolutely, Dan. And that's why we're here today, to shed light on the dark side of Facebook groups and the role they play in the world of scams. We hope that our listeners will take action to protect themselves and their loved ones from these scammers.
That's right, Paul. And we're doing everything we can to make sure lawmakers and regulators will take notice and take action to prevent scammers from using social media platforms like Facebook to prey on vulnerable people.
Exactly. We need to hold Facebook accountable for the harm their platform can cause. And we need to push for novel solutions and legislation that can curtail such scam activities. We need law enforcement to make it harder for scammers to steal from us and throw them in jail when they do. And it's also time for the tech industry as a whole to step up and take responsibility for the harm they're causing, whether they are directly responsible or not. Frankly, it's past time. We need to hold them accountable, and we need to demand action now.
True enough on all points, Paul, and I applaud your passion. We need to take a multi-pronged approach to protecting users from scams on Facebook. We need to educate users, we need Facebook to do more, and we need lawmakers to take action. We also need law enforcement to get involved. In our next episode, we will discuss even more about social media, with insights into Twitter's scam economy and how it harms us all.
Thank you, folks, for joining us for this segment, and I hope you guys learned something about fraud on Facebook. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this topic today, but coming up next, we'll be discussing healthcare and cybercrime after a brief word from today's sponsor.
Remember, don't be a victim. Be vigilant. And always remember to fact check before you click. Once again, this week's sponsor is Atlas VPN. If you're looking for a secure and private online experience, Atlas VPN has got you covered.
Your data security is of utmost importance, especially when using public Wi-Fi. With Atlas VPN, you can say goodbye to worries about network managers and hackers intercepting your connection and snooping on your online activities.
Atlas VPN reroutes your traffic through a secure tunnel and applies end-to-end encryption, ensuring that your connection remains safeguarded. It's like having your own virtual shield against potential threats.
But that's not all. Atlas VPN takes your online protection to the next level by blocking ads and malware. No more intrusive ads cluttering your browsing experience, and no more risks of stumbling upon dangerous websites that can harm your devices.
That's where SafeBrowse comes in. It's a powerful 2-in-1 privacy and security tool provided by Atlas VPN. SafeBrowse helps you escape online tracking, disabling those third-party trackers that follow your every move. Take control of your privacy and stay informed about who's tracking you.
And let's not forget about phishing scams and online threats. SafeBrowse is here to keep you safe. It blocks phishing attempts and prevents you from accessing risky websites designed to deceive and compromise your personal information. Say goodbye to those malicious programs that wreak havoc on your devices.
Privacy is a big deal, and Atlas VPN understands that. That's why they're offering our listeners an exclusive deal. By visiting www.antiscam.click and using our affiliate link, you can get an incredible 85% off. It's a fantastic opportunity to protect your online presence while supporting our show.
So don't wait any longer. Start your security journey today with Atlas VPN. Change your locations, keep all your devices safe, and enjoy their gaming and streaming optimized servers. It's time to experience the internet with peace of mind.
Visit www.antiscam.click and click through to Atlas VPN through our affiliate link now to take advantage of this limited time offer. Remember, it's risk-free for 30 days, and if you're not 100% satisfied, you can cancel anytime. Atlas VPN, the trusted companion for your online privacy and security journey.
And welcome back to the Antiscam Report, the podcast that exposes scams and fraud and provides you with the information you need to protect yourself. Once again, I'm Paul the Bulldog, and with me today is Dan. And to wrap things up today, we'll be discussing healthcare fraud and cybercrime, two intertwining issues that affect millions of Americans every year.
That's right, Paul. According to the FBI, healthcare fraud is estimated to cost the U.S. tens of billions of dollars each year. It's a serious issue that affects not only the government and insurance companies, but also the patients themselves, who may receive subpar care or even be harmed in the process. Besides, ultimately, it's all taxpayers who foot the bill because in addition to the lofty sums people pay for private insurance, Much of the funding for healthcare comes from programs like Medicare and Medicaid.
So let's dive into what the government is actually doing to combat this problem. The Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, is one of the agencies I've seen leading the charge. And they have a program called the Healthcare Fraud Prevention and Enforcement Action Team, otherwise known as HEAT. Dan, I know you've studied this topic. What can you tell us about them?
Well, the HEAT program is a joint effort between HHS and the Department of Justice, and it focuses on detecting and prosecuting healthcare fraud. In fact, back in 2020, the HEAT program was responsible for more than 800 criminal convictions and over $2.2 billion in recoveries. HHS has taken steps to combat healthcare fraud, including increased funding for enforcement efforts and partnering with law enforcement agencies to investigate and prosecute fraudsters.
That's actually a pretty good start. But how about the FBI? What do they do to fight healthcare fraud?
Good question, Paul. The FBI has a dedicated healthcare fraud unit that investigates a wide range of scams, from billing for services never provided to kickbacks and bribes. They estimate that healthcare fraud costs the U.S. over $80 billion every year from a variety of healthcare fraud schemes, including prescription drug fraud, durable medical equipment fraud, and home healthcare fraud. They also work closely with other federal agencies as well as state and local law enforcement.
According to my research, these fraud schemes often involve healthcare providers, such as doctors and pharmacists, who bill for services that were never provided, or who prescribe unnecessary medications or medical equipment. It's very important for patients to be mindful of this and protect themselves by being diligent and advocating for themselves. And of course, report suspicious activity as soon as possible. Cybercrime can take many forms, from stealing patient data to using ransomware to demand payment from a healthcare provider.
Despicable. And on that note, let's not forget about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, which plays an important role in protecting the healthcare sector from cyber attacks. The healthcare sector is a prime target for cyber criminals because it's one of the most data-rich and information-sensitive industries. CISA works with healthcare organizations to identify and mitigate potential cybersecurity threats.
So, we've informed our listeners a little bit about what the government is doing to combat healthcare fraud and cybercrime. But what about the scams themselves? Let's get into some examples so people know what to look for.
Yes, let's. One common scam is when fraudsters offer free medical services or supplies, such as braces or diabetic testing supplies, and then bill insurance companies for unnecessary or non-existent services. These scammers will go as far as obtaining a phone number that is one digit different from common insurance company hotlines and use that as an opening to make you believe they are legitimate. They will pressure you or imply that these services are a benefit you are owed, when in reality, they are an elaborate and often illegal ruse to bill you or your insurance company for thousands of dollars.
And then there's also several variations on the classic phishing scam, where fraudsters send out emails or texts posing as legitimate healthcare providers or pharmacies and trick people into giving out their personal information, or even unwittingly authorizing a number of illegitimate insurance claims or service billing agreements.
Horrible. And another very bold scam is when fraudsters simply offer bogus health insurance plans, often targeting vulnerable populations such as seniors and low-income individuals. Falling for one of these scams can have disastrous consequences for these vulnerable populations, leaving their identities stolen, accounts drained, and potentially without health insurance at a crucial time where their health is already compromised. Delays in service due to the confusion caused by scams can literally cost people their lives. I know it sounds dramatic, but it's true.
Absolutely, scams can be deadly. And what's worse, let's not forget about medical identity theft, where fraudsters use someone else's identity to obtain medical services or prescription drugs. This can be quite nefarious.
No, we can't forget that, since it also raises the issue of prescription drug fraud, where fraudsters obtain drugs illegally and sell them on the black market. This is one pipeline of many that contributes to the opioid crisis in America, but it's a crucial one. Many of us remember the pill mills from when prescription opioids first came to market, and we shouldn't forget the deal reported by the New Hampshire Department of Justice to be worth up to $6 billion, being paid by Purdue Pharmaceuticals and the Sackler family in acknowledging their role in the opioid crisis.
And finally, since the pandemic, there are the scams related to COVID-19, such as selling fake treatments or vaccines online or through social media. As well, there were a number of scams that exploited aid meant for those adversely impacted by COVID that instead went directly into the scam ecosystem.
I think you might mean unwell there, but I get what you're saying. You're right. These are just a few examples of the types of healthcare scams out there. It's a complex issue that requires constant vigilance and constant action. It's important for individuals to be careful when it comes to their healthcare information and to report any suspicious activity to the appropriate authorities as soon as they see it.
Absolutely. And it's not just up to the government or law enforcement to take action here. Patients and healthcare providers also have a role to play in preventing and reporting healthcare fraud.
True enough, Paul. Patients should always be aware of potential scams and suspicious activity, and should report anything they find to the appropriate authorities. Healthcare providers should also take steps to prevent fraud, such as verifying patient identities and using safe billing practices.
It's clear that healthcare fraud and cybercrime are serious issues that require everyone to be on high alert. Stay informed, stay aware, and stay safe, people. Don't fall for healthcare scams that promise miracle cures or a quick fix.
That's right, Paul. Great advice that we hope everyone will follow.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today's episode of the Antiscam Report. Join us next time for more tips on how to protect yourself from scams and frauds. And next episode, we'll be talking about how Elon Musk's Twitter takeover has made it easier than ever for scammers. And finally, remember folks, we love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us in the comments down below or on social media such as Twitter, Facebook, and Discord.
And remember also, Antiscam is funded through the generosity of our donors. It's our members that give us the financial support and political clout we need to fight for positive changes in the way scams and fraud are dealt with. Every dollar you donate helps amplify our message to lawmakers, and it's only through group efforts that lasting improvements happen. Please consider donating at www.antiscampac.com/donate. This is Dan.
And Paul.
Signing off. Until
next time. And as always, this communication has been brought to you, in part or in whole, by Antiscam. Antiscam, Act Now to Interrupt Senior Credit Asset Misappropriation, is a non-partisan political action committee and 527 organization registered with the FEC. Please visit us online to learn more. www.antiscam.click.